Hey, what's good, everybody? It's T.Mayne back again. Super awesome to have you here. And as you know, guys, is time for our market analysis, our weekly analysis, our preparation session. So in today, guys, we're gonna get into the DXY. We're gonna go through AUDJPY. We're gonna go through Aussie dollar. We're gonna go through NZDCAD and USDZAR. Now, as usual, guys, I'm gonna keep this as educational as possible. I'm gonna go through the usual concepts that I go through, things like identifying currency strengths and obviously hedging correlated pairs, still being able to capitalize on a certain base pair's strength or a certain base pair's weakness on two different correlated pairs that will still give us probability because those pairs are showing us setups in those directions. So obviously always thinking about our trading as if we're trading a portfolio of assets and maximizing on our potential. We also, guys, are gonna go over things like isolating structures and obviously identifying momentum and how momentum is changing. And finally, guys, last piece of I guess educational content that I want to throw in, guys, is how you should be managing cash flow in your forex business. So we're gonna have a look at forex pair, and then we're going to talk about how technical analysis, how our expertise in trading allow us to still even maximize further on our business, when we should be depositing into our forex accounts, when we should be withdrawing from our forex accounts, and we'll also be able to see how we can still make money in that form. Now let's get into the charts, guys. Let's not waste any more time. We'll start off with the DXY. Thanks for hopping onto the charts with me, guys. We have the DXY, we have AUDJPY, we have Aussie dollar, we have NZDCAD, and we have USDZAR. So those are the pairs that we're going to get into. Let's get into the DXY. So on the DXY, guys, if you look at things from a daily perspective, we still have this support structure over here where we saw a massive amount of buyers jumping in from. So we are looking at that support structure as a level of support that could potentially hold this market to the upside. Now, if we drop down onto the H4, we can see something interesting. So what we do see, guys, is a market that is creating some sort of a descending structure. Now, if we take a look at the immediate price action that we see at the end of this descending structure, we see some sort of a double bottom structure. The nature of a double bottom structure is sellers pushing prices down, buyers jumping in, buyers sending prices up, sellers thinking that this is an opportunity to sell higher. So sellers again begin to sell and are not able to push prices below the previous level of structure that buyers thought prices were valuable enough to buy. And then obviously buyers taking prices to the upside. So we do see that obviously sellers are failing to push prices lower at this previous support structure where we saw a lot of buyers sending prices higher. So looking at things on the DXY, guys, we're gonna go into the DXY next week with a slightly bullish bias, considering the fact that this market decelerated towards the support. We are now seeing a potential reversal structure. So all we are waiting for on the DXY is for structure to turn bullish. We are waiting for resistance to be broken to the upside and for that resistance to be respected as support. When we see prices breaking out of this resistance trend line and breaking above levels of structure, we will then assume that prices are beginning to change structure and we will start looking for those bullish bias setups. So over the course of next week, guys, we're going to be bullish. We're going to be expecting some dollar strength. Obviously the markets are still below this resistance trend line, so markets can take their own time below this resistance trend line before actually making that move to the upside. We're using this resistance trend line to identify the current downtrend that has been established, and we're assuming that when prices violate this trend line, then we will start to see some bullish price action. So that's what we're waiting for on the DXY. We're waiting to see a violation of this resistance trend line for some dollar strength. Let's go into AUDJPY. Now we'll start off on the daily. And on the daily, guys, what we will see is prices that have from these lows here violated structure to the upside, came back, established support and pushed to the upside again. we see prices after that breaking back into this higher structure that had been formed on our left hand side. So obviously we can see that buyers were not able to hold prices above a previous resistance area where sellers saw interest. So let's go down onto the H4 and get a little bit more context as to what's going on in terms of price action. So we've refined that support structure to our H4 here. We've accommodated for these closes here and these lows here of those candlesticks, and we isolated some structure. Now we had a look at the nature of this structure. When we put on a resistance trend line over here, we also slapped on a support trend line here, obviously accommodating for our two most recent touches over there. We had a broader, or we could look at this market a lot more broader and see the nature of the price action. Do we see the two differences in price action? That this price action on our left hand side seems to be a lot more impulsive than this price action here. With that being said, guys, over the course of next week, as much as we would love to be sellers on AUDJPY, we are having a lot of buying confluence that is aligning. We have this support structure here. We have this ascending trend line, ascending support trend line running in. We also have the support trend line that is descending within this smaller structure, all converging in this one area here. So we have a lot of confluence for support. We also have this nature's theory, impulse, correction, and next potential impulse to the upside to provide us, I guess, more reasons to be wanting to align ourselves on the buy side of things on AUDJPY. So over the course of next week, guys, all we are waiting for is for prices to give us that reversal structure in our area of value. Once we see prices giving us a reason to buy within these areas, guys, we're going to be bullish on AUDJPY. We're going to be looking to manage our trade by the time we get to this resistance area here, and maybe final targets up here. If I can manage to squeeze a nice trade with a good risk to reward ratio within this region here, then I might manage my full position by the time we get to that resistance there. Let's see, that's a 4% risk to reward ratio. So if I can manage to squeeze a trade in like this that has a risk to reward ratio that is greater than 1:3 or is equal to 1:3, then I might be looking to manage my full trade by the time prices get there. Why would I manage my trade by the time prices get there? Those were extreme highs that the market broke out of and broke back into. So this is a level of structure that was manipulated to the upside, and we saw prices breaking back within structure. So if I wanted to buy this pair, I would be looking to manage my trade by the time we get to this area here, because it is a structure and can hold in the future. So that's the setup that we're looking for on AUDJPY, guys. Let's go on to Aussie dollar. So guys, on Aussie dollar, we are looking at the most recent price action. Let's just delete that. So guys, most recent price action, if we just identify structure, we can see that we have a sort of larger impulse correction impulse structure. Let me draw this out for you. So if we just look at all of the structure from our left hand side, we have highs, we have lows, we have highs, I guess we have lows here, and then we have new highs over there. If we look at the nature of this price action and we begin to isolate our structure, what we will see is that this can be seen as an impulsive move to the downside, and this price action here can seem to be a corrective move to the upside. Now, if we slapped on a couple of trend lines just to identify any current trends that might be established here, we'll find that we can isolate some sort of a corrective structure, a larger daily corrective structure. So looking at things on AUD USD, guys, Aussie dollar can be bullish because we do have some support running below over there, though the main reason why we're looking not to be sellers at this point on Aussie dollar is not because of this higher time frame structure, but it's more because of the structure that we have on the lower time frame. Now if you look at what's going on a lower time frame, guys, we can see a market that has impulsed from these areas to the upside, was then caught in a consolidation, violated structure to the upside, broke back within structure, and we are seeing prices respecting this resistance again. So looking at things, guys, this could turn into a potential reversal structure to the downside. If we isolate our structure within this structure that we are looking at, this potential head and shoulder structure, we'll identify more sell bias structure, impulse, enter into a corrective phase. After the next corrective phase, what do we expect? An impulse in the direction of the previous momentum that led into the consolidation. So looking at things on the dollar, on Aussie dollar, guys, I've isolated this structure here, and based off this structure, I would like to be long-term bearish on Aussie dollar. So what do I mean by long-term bearish? We are going to wait for the market. The market has given us our first touch, given us our second touch, and if the market comes back within this resistance area over here, that is where we will begin to look for those selling probabilities to begin to pile up. So because of all of the momentum we have on our left hand side, because of this resistance that has been respected a couple of times, because of the 3-touch structure that we do have over here, because of the impulse corrective impulse nature of the market, because of all of those factors, guys, we're going to want to be, or I would love to be, long-term bearish on Aussie dollar. Also, if we think about our bias on the DXY, we're expecting some dollar strength. So if we're expecting that long-term dollar strength, AUDUSD should be making that move to the downside because of any dollar strength. Now, guys, that's the bias that we're looking for. Now, to bring in the whole concept of our correlation, we said that we are going to be looking at how we are going to use two base pairs that are correlated and look for trades in different directions based off structure. Now, we had a number of reasons on Aussie dollar why we're looking for some bearish momentum, and we had a number of reasons why on AUDJPY we're looking for bullish momentum. Both of these pairs are correlated because of they both have AUD as their base pair. So if we see Aussie dollar strength over the course of next week, then we will see all of the Aussie dollar base pairs making that move to the upside. If we have Aussie dollar weakness over the course of next week, then we should see all of these Aussie dollar base pairs making that move to the downside. And by looking at two different setups that are giving us valid probabilities in opposite directions that are both correlated, we give ourselves the opportunity to trade AUD strength, and we give ourselves the opportunity to trade any AUD weakness that we might see. So we're not forcing a bias, we're not imposing our directional bias on the market, but we're still allowing ourselves the opportunity to trade any strength that the market might give us or any weakness that the market might give us over the course of next week with the appropriate probabilities based on the structure that we objectively see on the chart. Let's go on to the next pair, guys. So the next pair that we're going to get into is New Zealand dollar CAD. So we'll start off on the daily. So guys, on the daily, what we can see is prices basically being already in this area of support. Why did we look at this as an area of support? Because this was the last push to the downside that had violated some structure. So if we look at what happened here in terms of structure, we have a support there, we have a support there, we have a support here. This was the last time price violated this support before breaking structure to the upside. What does that tell us about this move? That tells us that this was a false move to the downside to trap sellers in the market before prices were marked up. So we are looking at that area, at that zone, as a zone of potential manipulation, a zone of support, or whatever you would like to call it. And we're expecting that when prices enter this area in the future, there is going to be a reaction. Now, looking at things on New Zealand dollar CAD, we mentioned how I was going to mention how we're going to talk about identifying the different types of momentum. So we're looking at price action here on the 4 hour on NZDCAD. What we do see is some selling momentum. So we see sellers pushing prices lower, correction, sellers impulsively pushing prices lower into a corrective structure. Let me just point this out, guys. Look at the correction that happened here and look at the length of the next corrective structure. So we already see basically profit taking as well as additional sells being added for a potential last move to the downside. We see the deceleration start from these areas here, followed by that nice impulsive move inducing the last bit of sellers into the market. Now, what we see happening with the most recent price action, because that is the most important price action that we need to be looking at, is we see that selling momentum still being able to keep prices and push prices lower, but we are seeing that happen in a corrective manner. How do we know that it's corrective? Because we see prices violating structure to the downside and breaking back within structure. That shows us, or that tells us, that the nature of this structure is corrective. Now, what do we also understand by what's happening on the larger time frame? We are approaching this area where we should be expecting a reaction. Judging by the way the market is selling off right now, the market seems to be decelerating into this area of potential support. So what I would like to do on NZDCAD over the course of next week is I would like to start looking for those bullish bias setups. So because we've isolated our structure, we've identified the momentum, and we've identified how that momentum has changed, because yes, we are violating structural lows, but we're doing so in a corrective manner. All of those reasons are giving us a clue as to, yes, we can be sellers. Markets are trending to the downside, but we should be cautious because selling momentum is leaving the market. So what I would like to do is wait for structure on NZDCAD to turn into bullish bias structure. If we continue to correct to the downside, then that makes me want to be more interested in looking for a risk entry. Otherwise, if we impulse to the downside, then I will be waiting for a reversal structure for a reduced risk entry. So also using this resistance trend line just for some control, just so that we understand what's the current downtrend that's being held, and we know that when this trend line is violated to the upside, we could be expecting prices to retest levels of structure and complete to the upside. So that's all we're waiting for in NZDCAD. We're waiting for NZDCAD to give us a reason to buy into the new momentum. Once we see this structural change, we are going to start looking for those bullish bias setups. So NZDCAD, guys, I'm going into next week with a bullish bias. I'm going to be looking to target structural highs like these structural highs here, and if we see prices rallying more impulsively to the upside, then I might be looking to target at least these structural highs here. I don't think I would target anything higher than those structural highs, just depending on the risk to reward ratio that we manage to find within these areas here. That will determine whether I want to target these areas as my final target area or those extreme highs there. So bullish bias on NZDCAD, guys. Let's go on to the last pair that we're going to have a look at, and that's USDZAR. Now on USDZAR, guys, I remember mentioning to you guys at the beginning that we're going to go over the cash flow of your Forex business. Now, I know that I am in South Africa, and this can apply to anyone regardless of where you are within the world, because you have a reserve, your own currency, your own country's reserve currency. And if your own country's reserve currency is not the dollar, then you would be able to use this concept or this particular way of managing your account funds if you are trading a US dollar account. So let's go into things on USD ZAR. Let's speak about the structure. We still have this support structure over here where countless amount of buyers came into the market there, sending prices higher, extremely higher, violating previous higher structure that we find. Even that these are monthly highs as well, and as well as these highs here. So a lot of buyers came in and just destroyed structure on the left hand side. So looking at things right now, we have been trending to the downside for a while now, but if we look at the overall nature of this structure, we can see how we've been making that descent to the downside. If we look at the most recent price action as well, we can also see that this market basically has been sort of impulsive to the downside, but we haven't been impulsive in a very convincing manner. We have not been impulsive in a very convincing manner. So looking at things, we are approaching some support. We are seeing prices kind of approaching this support in a somewhat of a corrective manner, dropping down onto those smaller time frames, guys. We'll be able to isolate our structure and be able to see what's going on USD ZAR. So we've established a resistance trend line over here, so that we can get an idea of what's the current downtrend that is being held on USD ZAR. We will understand that when this resistance trend line gets violated to the upside, we should be looking for continuations because the established downtrend has been violated to the upside. So looking at that on USD ZAR, all we decided that we're going to be doing on USD ZAR was looking for USD ZAR to give us a structure to isolate so that we can be able to manage our trade and try and get in as soon as possible, but not too late for any bullish momentum. So on USD ZAR, guys, we're gonna go into USD ZAR with a bullish bias for next week, and how this helps you with your depositing and withdrawing of funds is that now that the rand is cheap, relative to where it was before. Remember, guys, everything in Forex, everything in the financial markets is measured relative to a previous price or some type of previous price action or previous decisions that were made. And so we can see that prices came all the way from 19 rand 35 cents all the way down to 13 rand 95 cents. If I was a buyer that bought previously when it was 13 rand 95 cents and I closed my position out at 19 rand 35 cents, wouldn't I think that this is a bargain once again? I probably would. And so if prices decide to turn bullish at this stage in time, this is the best time for you to deposit your rands into dollars. Deposit your rands into dollars while it's cheap. Trade whatever you're trading, and even if you're a break-even trader by the end of the year or whatever the case is, if the rand decreases in strength, in value, and this market makes that move to the upside, and you withdraw the exact same amount of money that you deposited, you will still withdraw more rands because the rand has been devalued. So this is the best time to be depositing your funds, and when prices are higher, these are the best times to be withdrawing your funds. And that's how you can still make money, just by depositing. Because remember, guys, when you deposit your funds and when you withdraw funds, you are trading the financial markets. Your orders are being placed in this market as well. When you buy dollars with your rands, you are actually buying into dollar strength. When you withdraw your dollars back into rands, you are selling this market. You're buying into rand strength. Thanks so much, guys, for getting into the analysis session with me. I thoroughly enjoyed it and I hope that you did. As usual, guys, if you have received some sort of value from today's analysis session, then definitely drop this video a like. Let me know that it positively impacted you and made you a better trader. Otherwise guys, subscribe to the channel. I'll show you guys, I told you the statistics that only 40 something % of you guys that watch our videos are subscribed. Do the family a favor, subscribe. Let's get to 1K so that we can be able to go live on the YouTube platform. I would absolutely love to do something like that, and I'm sure you guys would love to have a live session with me as well. Otherwise, let me not waste any time. This is T.Mayne. I had fun, hope you did. I enjoyed it, hope you did. I learned something, and I hope you did. I'll see you in the next video.